Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's a Friday in the nation's capital. A little drizzly, but it's going to be fine. It's going to be drizzly all day, but we're going into a beautiful weekend, and it's going to be a beautiful Friday because you're here. And Patrice Onwuka is here. Good morning, Patrice. Oh, there you are.
Happy Friday, Larry.
I should probably turn on your microphone.
That's okay.
Nobody
It's all
keeps
right.
baby in a corner.
That's right.
We have you covered today with regard to the latest on the indictment and yesterday's arraignment in Washington, D.C. of former President Donald Trump, the leading candidate for president right now. Based on the polls, he is actually, if the election were held today, he'd be president of the United States. So, of course, he's now facing multiple federal charges, third different jurisdiction indicting him. They're expecting a fourth, in fact. Why not? Throw it all at him. Kind of proves his point. It's 6:35. A former federal prosecutor, Will Scharf, he's running for Missouri Attorney General. He'll join us. 7:35, Andy McCarthy, former Assistant U.S. Attorney. 8:05, we'll talk to Congressman Ben Cline of Virginia. And at 8:35, Ian Pryor has some news coming out of Loudoun County. That's all coming up. As I said, I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. And let's get to yesterday's day in court. It was quite a media spectacle, wasn't it? With the cameras and the motorcade.
It was fun to watch.
Following his plane. And I keep seeing these headlines everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
While Trump was being arraigned, Biden went for a bike ride. They did the split screen, right? And now it's like, oh, this is such an important image for everybody to... You think it was an accident that Joe Biden, while on... Also, I don't know if this really conveys the message that they think it does. To me, I saw, the whole, Biden doesn't care, he's not even interested, he's not even... We know that Biden has engineered this whole thing.
Of course he knows about it.
And we know that it was calculated. Hey, he's being arraigned. Why don't we go out for a bike ride?
Yeah, obviously they want to make it seem like Joe Biden, he has all of these so-called scandals are not big deals to him. He's taking it all in stride, and it's all pedestrian, pun intended, if there's a pun in there.
By the way, he has every right to not, to not have a care in the world about all of the charges against him because he knows that his corrupt Justice Department won't do anything about it.
There are no charges
I'd be
yet.
going for a bike ride too if I knew that the DOJ was going to give my son a sweetheart deal with immunity.
Well, exactly. Joe Biden, the split screen obviously is just meant to remind us that President Trump is under a lot of legal scrutiny right now, and President Biden, he doesn't have a care in the world, which actually is not a good signal to send. Allegations aside, he's the president of the United States. He should have a lot of cares on his shoulders.
You are so right about that, Patrice. Here's the headline from NBC News. As Trump went to court, Biden went for a bike ride. The split screen on Thursday showed two men who might face off again in 2024 in very different situations. I think that the media, and I think that the Democrats in this town, but as Chris Plant would say, I repeat myself, I think they underestimate, first of all, how powerful the feeling is amongst Trump's base. Mm-hmm. And even people who, like for instance, I have tried to be incredibly impartial during this primary process. I am open-minded. I am open to whoever the Republican nominee would be. Mm-hmm. I totally understand the case made for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I also understand the case made for many of his opponents as well.
Yeah.
I'm willing to watch this play out before I commit myself to any of the candidates. But every time I see Donald Trump brought out for another indictment, brought out for another arraignment, when I see that these prosecutors, when deciding to levy charges against the current leading candidate for president and a former president, which is so unprecedented and so out of bounds of the norms in our country, when I see them bring charges that are really questionable, knowing that if you're going to bring charges of such a
There's
hot political...
There's got to be some meat there.
It should have been a slam dunk. There should be no doubt when you bring charges like this, and there's a hell of a lot of doubt. Every time I see that, Patrice Onwuka, I'm more inclined to say, screw it. I want Trump. I want Trump. And I think the media and the Democrats underestimate that. And more importantly, as you just pointed out, when they show Joe Biden laying on the beach, when they show him wearing his aviators and riding a bike and doing, all these, classic Biden, that's the brand. while the rest of us are paying twice as much for basic necessities.
Gas prices rising again.
Gas rising again. Interest rates still up. So the housing market is in the toilet.
Yeah.
We're still having trouble finding things on the shelves. Eggs cost more. Milk costs more. Meat costs more. On and on and on. And he's out there having fun on the beach and writing about. I don't think this conveys the visual message that they hope it does.
Well, and let's not forget this week, President Obama had a secret lunch with Biden. And from what was leaked, he told Biden, hey, don't take President Trump for granted.
Yeah.
Don't take your reelection prospects for granted. And when your old boss has to come out and tell you, hey, knock it off, Joe, get back in the saddle and look like you're doing something and look like you're being responsive to the American people, that tells you that the other powers that be, the whole Obama world, which is, I think, very different from the Biden world, they are taking these allegations seriously. They're taking the scrutiny against Biden and his family seriously, and they're taking the economic factors that Biden is facing seriously.
Yeah, and if you're 100% right, and if the election in 2024 in the fall comes down to Biden and Trump, which I still am not sure that it will, but if it is Biden versus Trump, I know they keep counting on this whole Trump fatigue factor, that it's like, people just, I don't want another 4 years of the drama. I'm exhausted of it, and blah, 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 blah. Trust me, we're only scratching the surface on the corruption that we're learning now from the House Oversight Committee's investigations into Joe Biden and his son. You think there's not fatigue over seeing these images of Hunter Biden and the crack pipes and the prostitutes and all the things that he did? You don't think there's fatigue already setting in about the obvious corruption that Joe Biden was in the center of and the lies that he told to cover it up so he could get elected? If it turns out to be these two, with all of this dirt on them, with all the mudslinging, with all of the charges, whether they're proper or not, it's, first of all, it's a wash, because either way, you're voting for somebody who has a cloud over them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a wash. But secondly, it's going to come down. There's going to be a lot of people who are just going to be turned off. I don't like either of them. They're both a mess.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for either of them. So then it comes down to the fervent, passionate base. Who do you think's more passionate?
That's interesting.
The people who love Joe Biden or the people who love Donald Trump? I don't see people coming out to rallies in the middle of the rain for Joe Biden, but they sure are doing that for Trump.
Well, and what Biden would not have in 2024 is a pandemic that he had in 2020 behind his back that he could leverage. I mean, the fear factor for a lot of voters who voted for Biden was that they thought that he could end the pandemic and they thought that he could handle the lockdowns and the whatever restrictions were needed better than President Trump handled them. He would not have that in 2020. Fingers crossed, Lord, from our lips to your ears, let there not be another pandemic.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have that kind of earth-shattering, world impact-wide kind of occurrence.
So you're telling me that
once-in-a-lifetime occurrence.
So the pandemic in 2020 helped Biden win the election
I think
because
it did.
of fear.
Absolutely.
And he won't have that going for him going into next year. Wow, that really sheds a lot of light on this segment from 2 days ago on MSNBC.
Many people don't even have any symptoms. A mask can be your best friend. Keep it private. Back in time, we had them in our pockets, in our coats, in our backpacks. Time to bring them out again, especially as the school season starts.
That's right. It's time to bring the masks out again. Yeah.
Now to new COVID concerns this morning. Now, the number of people testing positive in hospitals appears to be ticking up.
There you go. See, Patrice, don't underestimate their ability to bring it back, baby.
Yeah.
If they need it, we got our pandemic, pals. It's back again. Let's get Fauci up on stage. All right, more on yesterday's day in court for President Trump, the charges, commentary on the charges, and as you can hear from what Patrice and I are discussing, the politics of all of it, because that's really what this is all about. That's coming up in a moment. But first, it's 5:15. Beautiful moment yesterday on CNN. Anderson Cooper covering again the moment his plane landed at Reagan. Actually, the moment his plane was taxiing in West Palm Beach, Florida, then landed at Reagan Airport, and then the motorcade on its way to the federal. It's like, if you're a Republican candidate, it's like, oh, come on.
It's hard to get any airtime, for them to get any airtime.
It sure is.
He certainly sucked up all the air in the media yesterday.
And Trump seemed to be relishing it, frankly. He took his moment, when he got out of his plane and stood on the steps and he looked out. And, listen, it's hard to run against a guy who was just in the Oval Office straddling every power structure of the Western world, So here's the moment when Anderson Cooper, they're covering Trump's remarks, right? Listen.
Thank you very much. This is a very sad day for America. And it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much, everybody.
Do you want these trials to happen?
We should point out that when the former president left office and left Washington, D.C., the city was on lockdown because of the attack on January 6th. That is the city he left behind.
Yeah, so, D.C. may be filthy.
It was on lockdown, but he forgets the riots. Are you kidding me? People in Washington, D.C. know what the city looks like now, what it looked like when President Trump left, but back to Trump. I give President Trump credit. He was really stoic yesterday. I think if he was taking this all as a joke, which President Biden is doing with the allegations against him or his son, but if President Trump was taking this, as a big joke, this is nothing, if he was not serious about it, then I think that the way he presented himself yesterday would have been very different, would have been received very, very differently. They couldn't hit him on that. At best, he came across and said, "This is a sad day for all of us."
Yeah.
And I think everyone recognizes that.
Yeah, he does keep saying this sad day for America. I got to say, he has his moments where he's very disciplined in not making it sound like it's about him, that he's being personally persecuted. He's always best when he pushes back on this stuff by saying this is affecting our nation. It's affecting our Constitution. It's affecting the mood of our nation. It's making people feel hopeless. It's making people feel like the system is rigged. That's always better to focus on that rather than focus on him as a victim. He may very well be a victim, but when you focus on how it affects our nation, the fact that he is the point of that, or the point person in that persecution and the problems, we get it. That's already implied. You know what I mean? So you don't need to. No one wants to hear someone whining about themselves. You know
but it brings us back to the parents who've been trying to just simply speak up at their school board meetings and have been called terrorists. It brings us back to all those examples. People who are pro-life and are being targeted. So I think that's a great way of messaging.
100%. All right, a little bit more on yesterday's events and how the media covered it, and then going forward. What's next? Will there be charges coming out of Atlanta? And what is the legal analysis, including interesting legal analysis from a reporter at the New York Times? He's not an opinion guy. He's certainly not a conservative. Even the conservatives they have at the New York Times
not a columnist.
Don't quite get it. He breaks down for New York Times readers these charges, and, well, you'd be surprised at what they said in the New York Times. That's coming up in a moment. It's fine. Well, you said Trump looked stoic and defiant.
Yeah.
Right? And, well, according to CNN, he was actually in a very sour mood. Yeah, Caitlin Collins said so it's got to be true. He was irked, and he was in a sour and dejected mood. According to Caitlin Collins' sources, Caitlin Collins told the CNN audience, quote, "I am told that the former president, one thing that irked him particularly was during the hearing, the magistrate judge referred to him simply as Mr. Trump instead of Mr. President." So this became a little news meme on CNN and got picked up. It's like, Trump's really angry because the judge didn't refer to him as Mr. President. And by the way, I mean, listen, that is the appropriate protocol. You call any former president, they keep it.
Mr. President.
When I talked to, we interviewed the former governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, the other day, and we called him Governor McDonnell. That's you keep the title. It goes with you. You call him Mr. President. They even referred to Richard Nixon as Mr. President. Now, whether that's appropriate in a court proceeding or not, I don't know. I literally do not know. But first of all, I don't believe the Caitlin Collins story. I'm told this is how I'm told that they're told by who?
Yeah, exactly. I think listen, a lot of the headlines I'm reading here about how people are making a lot of the glance that happened between
special
counsel and President Trump.
Jack Smith looked at Donald Trump.
And it was for a moment. And if you missed it, it was fleeting. But it was a historic moment, Politico calls it. Like, this is porn for them. This is
political porn.
This is political porn. They're trying to drip everything that they can from this story. And you know what? They're trying to make money off of this because frankly, the rest of their content is not making
ratings have been down. You're right,
exactly.
And they can't get enough of this. Jack Smith locked eyes with Donald
him as
Trump.
A hero. He's used to taking down bad guys
with
and
his
now
Subway
he's
sandwich.
President.
Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. Well, we're not sure if he was irked or not, but I can tell you this: Donald Trump took to his social media platform and said, "Considering the fact that I had to fly to a filthy, dirty, falling apart, and very unsafe Washington, D.C. today, and that I was then arrested by my political opponent who was losing badly to me in the polls, crooked Joe Biden, it was a very good day."
Yeah, that doesn't sound like he's irked and annoyed. Maybe he was annoyed that he had to wait 15 minutes for the judge because I don't know what was going on with the delay, but
maybe. I can tell you this, though. The second he got back to Mar-a-Lago, there was a wedding taking place. You know, people can book that place for their weddings.
Yeah.
And he decided he wanted to crash the wedding. And it sounded like, imagine being in this wedding party. That's what it sounded like. Oh, and they gave him a microphone, too. He was going to address the wedding party there. You know how earlier this week there were all these articles from the New York Times with the poll in the Republican primary saying it's over, it's over.
I don't think so.
I do. you see
mean
something
over for
like
Biden?
That. Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't see. Well, there's a lot of game to be played, but on a day that it was supposed to be bad for Trump,
yeah,
it actually wasn't that bad for
Not
Trump.
at all.
And that's the funny thing. People are numb to this now because they see it for what it is. 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37 now on O'Connor and Company, and you just heard us break down the political ramifications of Trump's arraignment yesterday and how it might affect him in the primary and in the general election, should he win the primary. Coming up throughout the morning, we're going to talk about the legal aspects of this case. It's 6:35 with Will Scharf. He is a former federal prosecutor and now running for Attorney General in Missouri. 7:35, Andy McCarthy, a former assistant U.S. attorney. At 8:05, Congressman Ben Cline of Virginia. And at 8:35, Ian Pryor is going to give us an update on the comings and goings of Loudoun County politicians. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka.
Hey, happy Friday, Larry.
Whew, happy Friday to you, too. Dianne Feinstein, 90 years old. It's funny, anytime you see any story about Dianne Feinstein, they so want to get rid of her.
Oh,
the New York Times and the Washington Post hate the
course.
fact that she's hanging on to let the voters in California decide. They want Gavin Newsom to appoint somebody, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they want to just keep that. And listen, it's not like they're not going to keep that seat for as long as they want. But they hate her because, you know, she hasn't been as radically left-wing as they want her to be. She's been pretty left. But that's where this party has moved. So anytime they read a story about Dianne Feinstein, the ailing, feeble, semi-coherent, it's like, have you looked at the Oval Office lately?
Thank you.
Guys? But there's more drama in Dianne Feinstein's life that goes well beyond her pending retirement and who might replace her. Apparently, there's a lot going on in her personal life with regard to the finances of their family. She famously married a very wealthy man. You know, she was a city councilman in San Francisco, or maybe a county supervisor in San Francisco, now that I think about it. Then the mayor of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Then she was the senator, and she's been the senator for all this time. So, you know, you don't get rich, unless your name is Biden, you don't get rich with those kind of jobs. But she married well.
Well, and I think she was her family was independently wealthy, if I'm not wrong.
Already? Oh, well,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know that. I thought that she married into the money.
She did marry well.
Either way, Richard Blum is her late husband. Either way, there's a whole lot of cash at hand here.
Yeah.
And apparently the children, both Mr. Blum's children from a prior marriage and Dianne Feinstein's children, they are going through a wicked battle over all this money. And it's an ugly thing to watch no matter who is the matriarch or patriarch.
And it's kind of sad to watch. So, yeah, I'm reading in the New York Times article that she was rich in her own right in 1980 when she married Mr. Bloom. So listen, the lady was doing well and she married well, but time takes its toll, and it has obviously taken its toll on her physically. And that said, the conversation around whether she should still be in office is a very good one to have.
Yeah.
But, the way that they're making this, so publicly about her life, they're trying every avenue, and by they I mean the media and the Democrats and the left who want her gone so badly. They're trying their best to embarrass her. And
I hear
think
you.
That's what this is.
But let me just say, she's doing a lot of embarrassing things. I mean, the other day in a committee hearing, they had to tell her how to vote, and you heard it on microphone, and she was dazed and confused. And the latest development here in what's going to happen with the family fortune is that she has given power of attorney to her daughter.
Yeah.
Now, you give power of attorney to somebody because you're incapable for one reason or another to handle things yourself. Now, listen, if you're traveling internationally and you need somebody back here at home to take care of any legal proceeding that might happen while you're gone, then you give them power of attorney. That's one thing. That's not what's happening here. She's right here. She's alive. She's breathing. And she is incapable of handling this fight over the family fortune. So she has ceded power of attorney and control of these things and all the decision-making power to her daughter. Yet she still serves in the U.S. Senate and votes theoretically to make, major decisions for the direction of our nation. You kind of have a point. If you can't handle your own personal family affairs because you're incapable, I mean, who else have you ceded power to? Your chief of staff, your comms person? Who's really making the decisions there? That said, you could ask the same questions of John Fetterman.
Exactly.
And frankly, based on what we saw last week, Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
And, of course, our illustrious president.
Which is why I think I'm actually happy to see somebody on the campaign trail talk about term limits. Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
She has said, you know what? Listen, we've got folks on the left and the right. They are obviously not capable of doing their jobs. Maybe it's time for us to set some term limits for members of Congress and, frankly, for the highest office so that, those folks, we don't want to diminish all that they've accomplished, but they need to move aside.
Yeah.
Because the decisions they're making or holding hostage from being made are consequential to every American.
Yeah, I believe. Well, hold on. Just to be clear here, who's making that case right now on the campaign trail?
Nikki Haley.
I'm just saying Nikki Haley should be careful about saying that politicians are not in their prime and they need to be in their prime when they serve, because she wouldn't be in her prime according to Google or whatever it is.
I'm just saying, Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking
What are you talking about?
A little Don Lemon for the morning.
Well, Nikki Haley has got, it's been a long time since Don Lemon's been heard in the morning. Whatever happened to that guy? Nikki Haley is suggesting term limits. She's also suggesting cognitive tests for politicians of a certain age, which, comes very close to saying we should forget about term limit. How about age limiting people out? You reach a certain age and you're done. And, ultimately the voters will decide. Yeah. I'm always happy with the voters having the decision-making power here. Nikki Haley should be able to make her case for herself better than, the old feeble person that she's running against. And if she can't, then that's her problem, right? But that said, it is disconcerting when you see politicians like this. It feels, again, it's more of this third world nation banana republic where they prop up the fearless leader in the suit, and it's really the apparatchiks behind the snes who are running everything.
Yeah. I mean, listen, While I hesitate to say, okay, at a certain age, you got to be out because you have older Americans who are super sprightly.
That's right.
On point.
That's
right. Are able to hit back vociferously.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of President Trump right there versus someone who, it could be younger, but is still mentally incapacitated. Like they're just not there
Honestly,
for whatever physical reason.
The healthier thing here is not for us to have some imposition on these people. The healthier thing is for these people to get a freaking life. For God's sake, Mitch McConnell, you have served your time. Go enjoy your grandchildren. Go enjoy your wife.
Put your ego aside and believe enough in the legacy you have created that it's going to live beyond, and your accomplishments will live beyond you being in office. You don't
Nikki
have
Haley
to
isn't
be
in
there.
her prime. Sorry.
Well, no, Don. Don is saying something totally different here.
It's 5:44. And as we told you yesterday, and I'm interested in your opinion. I got Julie Gunlock's take on it.
Okay.
This idea that Ron DeSantis has agreed to debate Gavin Newsom. Now, Ron DeSantis is running for president.
Yeah.
He's focusing, of course, on his opponents in the Republican primary. And then should he prevail, then he needs to debate the Democrat candidate, which should be Joe Biden, it appears, but who knows? So why is he taking time to agree to debate Gavin Newsom? It's the Florida versus California debate, and let's face it. I mean, listen. I think he's swinging for a home run here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of downside. If Gavin Newsom comes out and he
runs circles around him,
he's in trouble. And Gavin Newsom is very slick. Here's it. You always want to watch yourself when you're debating someone who was so shameless that they will just smile their way through so many lies. And also be vicious. I mean, Gavin Newsom is he's a terrible, evil human being. Yeah. And he looks like a villain in a comic book movie. So I think that it's high risk, high reward for DeSantis, and I don't know if it's a good idea.
So here is, I think, the positioning. Most Americans would have actually loved to have seen a DeSantis versus Newsom at the top of the ticket type of battle. That being those two being the contenders.
When you say most Americans, why do you say it? If that's true, then why is DeSantis losing to Trump soundly?
And why hasn't Newsom jumped into the race himself and taken out Biden?
Exactly.
I mean, I think in our minds, that's probably what the matchup would have been. And so maybe this is so for DeSantis, this is a Hail Mary saying, okay, I want you to see that this is the matchup that should be next year.
Okay.
And so I'm going to prove to you that I can knock this guy out, and I can which means I can absolutely knock out Biden. But your point is well taken. If he doesn't, if Newsom runs circles around DeSantis, and here's the thing, you've got two guys, one who's well known for being very good looking, tall, a little bit. I guess Newsom maybe is a little bit gregarious.
You think he's good looking?
A lot of people say he is. I don't. But
he's not my type.
But DeSantis is very much straight. I would think he's not your type.
Thank you.
But DeSantis is much
neither
more.
is Kimberly Guilfoyle, for that matter. I'm not interested in either of those people.
Well, DeSantis, I'm trying to get us back.
Sorry,
DeSantis is much more straightforward. I'm going to hit you right where I'm going to try and hit you where it hurts. I'm very that he brings some zingers out there. And so this is going to be a battle of policy ideas, which I actually like because this is going to be big picture. Is it socialism or is it free market, free enterprise? Is it freedom or is it top-down government control? Is it technocrats or is it, bottom-up individuality? And that's the kind of high-minded policy discussion that I would love to see.
Well, I'll tell you what.
If he was running for VP, if DeSantis was running for VP and Gavin Newsom was also running for VP.
You are 100% echoing what Noah Rothman wrote in National Review yesterday about this.
I didn't read the piece, I promise.
100%. He said He said the DeSantis-Newsom debate is more than just a spectacle. It could be a political exercise of the sort that the founders had in mind. Founding fathers would have loved having a governor of this state debating a governor of that state about the future of our union. And honestly, that's why I prefer governors as potential presidents because they are used to being in the executive seat, and they can show us what they were capable of when they were running their state. Within the confines of the federal guidelines that you have to follow when you're a governor, but governors have a lot of leeway and a lot of executive power. And they're able to say, listen, this is my vision for being a chief executive, and here's how things are going in my state. So, yeah, the idea of California versus, let's face it, that's the discussion all Americans have been having for the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
Is basically boiled down
Absolutely.
to, do you want our country to be like California or do you want it to be like Florida?
Thank you.
And as has been
Yes.
said, people are voting with their feet. People are not
they
moving
are.
to California in droves. They're moving out of California
Yeah.
in droves, and they're moving to places like Florida. So, yes, on that aspect of it, I think it's great. By the way, but this isn't about what kind of country do you want this to be, a California-type country or a Florida. I would love that to be the debate, but the debate is Gavin Newsom versus Ron DeSantis. It always comes down to the individuals. It comes down to the people. That's right. I mean, I would argue coming out of the Eisenhower presidency that if our discussion was, do we want to continue the Eisenhower legacy that has made this country safe and wealthy, or do we want to go in a radically different direction, then most people would say, yeah, 4 more years of Eisenhower works for me. But that's not what the debate in 1960 was. It was shifty, shady, tricky Dick Nixon versus beautiful, smiling, wealthy, enigmatic John F. Kennedy. It always comes down to the man versus the man.
And their looks. You see that?
Their looks have a big part of it. You're right.
Absolutely play a role in this.
I don't see Gavin Newsom as attractive. I see him looking like he's Governor Hair Gel. He looks like a villain.
He is tall. He's got that swimmer physique, you know, dresses well.
And the media loves him.
They do.
Because they are radical left-wing progressive hacks. And here's a perfect example. The Washington Post had an article about Ron DeSantis agreeing to the debate. And here's what the Post on the X, formerly known as Twitter, social media platform reads. This is how it reads from the Washington Post. See if you can pick up on whether they've already taken sides here. See if you can read between the lines here and pick up some kind of bias from the Washington Post. Are you ready? Republican presidential hopeful and right-wing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has agreed to finally meet California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom on the debate stage.
Can I give you one to go with that?
No, wait, let's pause for a minute. Just in case people missed it. Gavin Newsom is merely the Democratic governor of California, but Ron DeSantis is the right-wing governor. No, wait, I'm sorry. Far right-wing governor of Florida.
Why did they just put MAGA in there?
There's no such thing as left-wing. Nobody in this country is left-wing.
They don't believe that.
You're normal and moderate and sensible and intelligent like us. And if you're not like us, you're right-wing MAGA fascist. It's just beautiful.
Here's the San Francisco, what is it, San Francisco?
Examiner or Chronicle?
Chronicle. As his presidential campaign falters, Ron DeSantis agrees to debate Gavin Newsom. So that's how they position it.
Yeah.
I mean, this would have been a matchup for all time, but it's not. It's going to kind of fizzle. It's going to fly under the radar.
I disagree. I want to be wrong about this, Patrice. I'm dying to be wrong. But this is set up to really do damage to Ron DeSantis.
It is.
And it's going to be on Fox News, moderated by Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
So the narrative is, Gavin Newsom's walking into the lion's den.
Yep.
And
he's gonna start out as the underdog in this situation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he's good at this. He really is. Because he lies and he's shameless about it. He doesn't mind. He doesn't care. And no one's going to fact check him because he's got the media in his back pocket. And I just think listen, like I said, high risk, high reward, but don't overlook the risk.